Hello everyone, and welcome back to ANS Vlogs. Today, we are taking you inside one of Regina's most fascinating places, the Royal Saskatchewan Museum. And this is going to be a little different from a normal museum visit. Instead of simply showing you a few displays, we are going to take you with us on an interactive walking tour through the museum. We are going to explore Saskatchewan's landscapes, wildlife, ancient animals, ice age fossils, glacier and, of course, one of the biggest stars of the museum, Scotty the T. Rex. For this adventure, we brought two cameras with us. We used the GoPro Hero 13 Black and the GoPro Max 2. We wanted to see how these two cameras would perform inside a museum, especially with indoor lighting, detailed exhibits, glass cases, large displays, and walking footage. So while you're watching, you'll also get to experience the museum from the perspective of both cameras. Our tour begins upstairs, and as we start walking toward the terrace, we get our first spectacular view. 1. The terrace overlooking Scotty. And look at that! Down below is Scotty the T. Rex. Even from this high viewpoint, you can immediately appreciate just how enormous this animal was. The Royal Saskatchewan Museum identifies Scotty as the world's largest and most massive Tyrannosaurus rex. The museum says scientific research confirms Scotty's status, exceeding the famous SUE specimen at Chicago's Field Museum in both estimated mass and length. But there's something even more amazing. Scotty wasn't discovered somewhere far away. Scotty was discovered right here in Saskatchewan. The discovery happened in the Frenchman River Valley in 1991. The remains were painstakingly excavated, much of the work being done by hand, and the excavation wasn't completed until 2014. The resulting skeleton is approximately 65% complete. So as we stand here looking down at Scotty, we are not just looking at a dinosaur. We are looking at one of Saskatchewan's most internationally famous scientific discoveries. 2. Scotty the T. Rex. Now we are walking around the Scotty area and getting a closer look. Look at the skull, those jaws, those teeth, and then look at those tiny arms. It's almost funny when you compare those little arms with the enormous head and powerful legs. But the museum gives us the opportunity to learn much more than simply what Scotty looked like. The gallery also tells the story of Scotty's discovery. We can learn about the environment in which this dinosaur lived, the fossils discovered alongside it, and even injuries that Scotty experienced during its lifetime. And that's what makes a museum like this so interesting. A skeleton by itself is impressive, but when scientists combine the bones with other fossils, geology, and environmental evidence, they can begin reconstructing an entire ancient ecosystem. Imagine this. More than 65 million years ago, this area of Saskatchewan was home to a completely different world. The landscape was warmer, the plants were different, the animals were different, and walking through that environment was a predator that would eventually become one of the most famous dinosaurs in the world, Tyrannosaurus rex. And that predator is represented here by Scotty. 3. Ecoregions of Saskatchewan. Now we are moving away from Scotty and beginning our journey through Saskatchewan's living landscapes. This is the Life Sciences Gallery. The museum's Life Sciences Gallery takes visitors on a tour of Saskatchewan's environments, presenting the province's 4 major ecozones and its 11 ecoregions. This is one of the things I really like about this part of the museum. Instead of just putting an animal in a glass case, the museum tries to show us where that animal actually lives. We can see the plants, we can see the terrain, we can see the habitat, and then we can understand how the animals fit into that environment. So let's continue. 4. Bur Oak. Here we are looking at the Bur Oak. The Bur Oak is an excellent example of how Saskatchewan isn't simply endless grassland. There are wooded environments and transition zones throughout the province. Trees such as Bur Oak provide food and shelter for wildlife and help create completely different habitats from the open prairie. And as we continue walking, the environment begins changing again. Five. Aspen Parkland. Now we are entering the Aspen Parkland. This is a transition zone between the open prairie and the forest, and you can really see that difference. There are trees, but there are also open grasslands. This combination produces a unique environment where many species can find food and shelter. And that's one of the fascinating things about Saskatchewan. You can travel across the province and see enormous changes in vegetation and wildlife. The environment isn't static. It changes depending on moisture, temperature, soil, elevation, and geography. Six. The northern environments. As we continue, we are moving toward colder northern environments. This is where snow, cold temperatures, and shorter growing seasons become increasingly important. The northern parts of Saskatchewan may look completely different from the southern prairie, and animals living there have to adapt. Their bodies, behavior, and feeding strategies are influenced by the environment around them. So even though we are still inside the same province, we are entering another ecological world. 7. Grasslands. Now we are coming back toward one of the landscapes Saskatchewan is most famous for, the grasslands. When many people imagine Saskatchewan, this is probably the landscape they picture. Wide open prairie, grass, big skies, and seemingly endless horizons. But look closely. Grasslands are much more complicated than they first appear. Above the ground we see grasses and wildflowers. But below the surface is an enormous network of roots. Those roots help plants survive dry periods and contribute to the health and stability of prairie soils. So when you look at a prairie, remember, there's an entire ecosystem underneath your feet. 8. Last mountain lake. Water completely changes an ecosystem. Wetlands provide habitat for birds, mammals, amphibians, fish, and countless other organisms. They are also extremely important places for migrating birds. And Saskatchewan is located along major migration routes. So a lake here isn't isolated from the rest of the world. A bird can use Saskatchewan as a stopover and later continue thousands of kilometers north or south. Nine, grassroots. Now we are looking closely at the grassroots. This may not look as spectacular as a T-Rex skeleton, but it's incredibly important. The roots are part of what makes prairie ecosystems so resilient. They help hold the soil, they help plants survive drought, and they store organic material underground. So the prairie isn't just what we see above the surface. It's also what is happening beneath our feet. 10. Mixed grasslands. Here we can see another transition in Saskatchewan's prairie environments. Different grasses and plants are adapted to different moisture levels. Some areas receive more moisture, others are considerably drier, and that changes what can grow there. This is why ecologists divide Saskatchewan into different ecoregions. They allow scientists to better understand the relationships between climate, vegetation, soil, and wildlife. 11. Sage flats. This is a much drier environment. Water becomes an even more important limiting factor. Plants and animals have to survive with less moisture. And when you look at this display, you can see how different it is from the wetter areas we just passed. "12. Snake display. And now, we have arrived at the snakes. Oh no, I have to tell you, I don't like snakes. So if you see me being a little careful here, now you know why. But I still want to show them to you. Because even though snakes aren't my favorite animals, they are an important part of Saskatchewan's ecosystems. They are predators. They control populations of other animals, and they themselves become food for other predators. That's how ecosystems work. Everything is connected. So I'm going to be brave. And let's keep walking." 13. Frenchman River Valley. And this area is particularly meaningful because it connects directly back to Scotty. This is where Scotty's remains were discovered. The Royal Saskatchewan Museum says Scotty was discovered by an RSM research team in Saskatchewan's Frenchman River Valley in 1991. So think about that. The same general Saskatchewan landscape represented in this gallery is connected to one of the most important dinosaur discoveries in the province. Modern Saskatchewan and prehistoric Saskatchewan are connected through the fossil record. 14. Mule deer. The name comes from those large ears that resemble the ears of a mule. Mule deer are well adapted to Western North American environments and can live in a variety of habitats. Again, the museum is showing us an animal within its environment rather than simply presenting an isolated specimen. 15. Cypress Hills. This is one of the most unusual landscapes in Saskatchewan. The Cypress Hills rise dramatically above the surrounding prairie. Their elevation creates environmental conditions that are different from the surrounding plains. And the Cypress Hills also have an extraordinary geological history. During the Ice Age, much of Saskatchewan was affected by massive continental glacier. But the highest areas of the Cypress Hills remained above the advancing ice. That helped preserve a unique environment. So when we are looking at the Cypress Hills today, we are looking at a landscape with a very unusual history. 16. Mountain of birds. Moving into Saskatchewan's bird displays. And there are so many different species represented. Birds are one of the best ways to understand how connected Saskatchewan is to the rest of the world. Some birds remain here throughout the year. Others migrate thousands of kilometers. And some use Saskatchewan only as a seasonal stop. 17. Cypress upland and plants. Look at the plants here. The vegetation reflects the different environmental conditions created by elevation and moisture. It's amazing that such different plant communities can exist within the same province. And then we come back to the birds. "18. Golden eagle. Here is the golden eagle. This is a powerful predator. Look at those talons. Look at the hooked beak. And look at those wings. Birds of prey occupy an important position within ecosystems because they help regulate populations of other animals. "19. Global view of migration. Now we reach one of the most fascinating transitions, the global view. And this is where Saskatchewan becomes connected to the rest of the planet. Migratory birds don't recognize political borders. A bird can breed in Saskatchewan and spend another part of the year in Central or South America. Another species may travel north toward the Arctic. The museum's displays demonstrate these enormous migration connections. So Saskatchewan isn't an isolated prairie. It is part of a global ecological system. 20. The tropical rainforest. And now, we've gone from Saskatchewan to the tropical rainforest. What a contrast. Look at the vegetation. Everything is dense, green, layered, and full of life. This environment may look completely unrelated to Saskatchewan. But remember the migrating birds. Some birds that breed in Saskatchewan spend part of their lives in Central and South America. So these two environments are actually connected. A bird can depend on both. "21. The Arctic and Mackenzie Delta. Now we are going in the opposite direction. We are heading north, toward the Arctic. And here we are seeing the Mackenzie Delta environment. The Arctic may look harsh, but during the summer, it becomes an incredibly productive environment for migrating birds. Birds travel north to breed during the short Arctic summer. They take advantage of abundant food and long daylight hours. Then, when the seasons change, they begin traveling south again. And Saskatchewan is part of that journey. "22. Anthropocene. This is where the museum changes the question. Instead of only asking, what lives here? We begin asking, what are humans doing to the planet? Human activity affects ecosystems on a massive scale. Climate, water, habitat, pollution, resources, biodiversity. The Anthropocene encourages us to think about our relationship with the natural world. 23. Plains bison. And now we are seeing one of the most important animals of the Canadian prairies, the plains bison. The bison is not only an iconic prairie animal, it is also deeply connected to Indigenous history and culture. Bison supported Indigenous communities across the plains with food, clothing, shelter, and tools. We'll explore that much more deeply in Part 2 when we enter the Indigenous Gallery. 24. Nature has limits. And now we reach the message that nature has limits. That's something worth thinking about. Water has limits. Land has limits. Wildlife populations have limits. Natural resources have limits. Every ecosystem has a capacity. And this section encourages us to think about how human choices can affect the systems that support us. 25. Ancient browser ancient mammals. Now we are leaving the modern Saskatchewan ecosystems behind. We are traveling backward through geological time. Here we are seeing ancient mammals, animals that once lived in environments completely different from today's Saskatchewan. Some look surprisingly familiar. Others look almost unbelievable. This is where paleontology becomes really exciting, because every fossil is evidence. A fossil can tell scientists what an animal looked like, where it lived, what it ate, how it moved, and sometimes even how it died. 26. Giant pig, rhinoceros, and extinct predators. Now we are seeing some of the ancient mammals represented in the gallery. There are enormous pig-like animals, ancient rhinoceroses, and extinct meat-eating mammals. These aren't dinosaurs. They are part of the later history of mammals, and they show how dramatically Saskatchewan's ecosystems changed after the dinosaurs disappeared. 27. Fossil tree stump. Now we are looking at a fossilized tree stump. This is a beautiful reminder that fossils aren't only animals. Plants can become fossils too. A tree can be buried. Sediment can cover it. Minerals can replace or preserve parts of the original material. And millions of years later, we can study what remains. 28. Woodland. Now we are moving through an ancient woodland environment. Imagine Saskatchewan looking like this millions of years ago. It's difficult to reconcile this with the prairie landscape we see today. But that's exactly what makes the fossil record so fascinating. The landscape is constantly changing. 29. Miocene animals. Now we are looking at animals from the Miocene. This was a period millions of years ago when mammals diversified and ecosystems continued changing. Some animals may look vaguely familiar, but they are members of evolutionary branches that no longer exist. 30. Ancestral mastodon. Now we are approaching the ancestral mastodon. Mastodons were ancient relatives of elephants. And this is an important distinction. Mammoths and mastodons were not the same animal. They belonged to different branches of the Proboscidean family. The Ice Age landscape supported several kinds of giant mammals. And we are getting closer to that period now. 31. Grassland plains. Here we have another ancient grassland environment. And once again, the museum allows us to compare ancient landscapes with modern Saskatchewan. Grasslands have existed in different forms for enormous periods of time, but the animals living in them have changed. 32. Field station. Now we are entering the field station. This area helps us think about the scientific process behind museum collections. Museums aren't simply places where fossils are displayed. Scientists have to find them, document them, excavate them, prepare them, identify them, research them, and preserve them. A specimen sitting behind glass represents years of scientific work. 33. Ice Age, Pleistocene epoch. And now, we are entering the Pleistocene epoch, the Ice Age. This is one of the most dramatic periods in Saskatchewan's geological story. Massive continental ice sheets advanced across the landscape. They changed the terrain. They transported enormous quantities of rock and sediment. They created lakes. They carved valleys. And when the ice eventually retreated, it left behind the landscape that we recognize today. 34. Early Ice Age. Now we are looking at the early Ice Age. This was a Saskatchewan filled with animals that no longer live here. The climate was colder. The landscape was different. And large mammals were common. 35. Giant bison. Now we are looking at the giant bison. This was an ancient bison species that was much larger than many modern bison. It was part of the Ice Age megafauna. And it's another reminder that today's plains bison isn't the only bison that has lived on the Canadian prairies. 36. Ice Age fossils. Now we are surrounded by Ice Age fossils. And this is where the story becomes incredibly tangible. We are not imagining the Ice Age. We are looking at physical evidence. Bones, teeth, fragments, and fossils preserved in Saskatchewan's geological record. 37. Mammoths. And now, mammoths. This is one of those moments where you just have to stop and look. These animals were enormous. Mammoths were adapted to cold environments and had thick bodies, insulation, and large tusks. When you see a mammoth skeleton in person, you really understand how enormous Ice Age animals could be. 38. Glacial moraine. 39. Glacial lakebed. 40. Drumlins, spillways, and prairie potholes. Part 1 conclusion. And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our Royal Saskatchewan Museum walking tour. We started by looking down from the terrace at Scotty the T. Then we traveled through Saskatchewan's living ecosystems. We saw Bur Oak, Aspen Parkland, grasslands, Last Mountain Lake, Mixed Grasslands, Sage Flats, the Frenchman River Valley, Mule Deer, Cypress Hills, Birds, Golden Eagles, Global Migration, the Tropical Rainforest, the Arctic, the Mackenzie Delta, the Anthropocene, the Plains Bison, and the message that nature has limits. Then we traveled backward through millions of years of geological history. We saw ancient mammals, a fossil tree, mastodons, giant bison, mammoths, and finally, we saw how glaciers shaped Saskatchewan. And remember, this was only part 1, because in part 2, we are going to explore an equally important side of Saskatchewan's story. We are entering the Indigenous Gallery. We'll see Indigenous artwork and material culture. We'll learn about traditional clothing, ceremonies, powwow dancing, storytelling, bison, caribou, moose, fishing, trade, treaties, and the powerful We Are All Treaty People section. We'll also look at the Chief Pasqua pictograph. Then we'll finish our journey downstairs with the main dinosaur experience. We'll return to Scotty. We'll explore Saskatchewan's ancient inland sea monsters, dinosaurs, fossil discoveries, dinosaur extinction, and Saskatchewan after the dinosaurs. So if you're enjoying this journey, please subscribe to ANS Vlogs and follow our Facebook page. Thank you for coming along with us. And let's continue the adventure in part 2.